Daddy just starved, like they said, eat it, hog.
That's where that came from.
I missed most of the story.
Martin said, I don't believe, he turned to my mother and said, I don't think I'll whip him. He said, he's been sick. I don't think if he was in my house he would say that.
Chuck, turn it down. Chuck has it.
You want to turn that TV off?
Yeah, they want it.
Turn the TV off, then let it get to.
Do you regret in not being taught the Choctaw language? You asked about Kunta a while ago.
I wish I had learned it now. My sister in Georgia has just got the tapes. She told me, but it's too late for me. I'm not going to try anymore. I know a few words. Oofy for dogs, Subar for horses, walk for cow.
Walk.
Wakashi is for bull, isn't it?
Wakushi is small.
Is what?
Small calf. Wakushi. Ushi means little or offspring.
Oh, little, Well, I thought Scatini was little.
It can be small or little.
Yeah.
It just depends on what context you use it in.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
there's a lot to learn about the language. But too much for me to start now.
You said kunta a while ago. That's whistle.
Yeah.
To whistle. And kenta. Do you know where kenta is in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Means beaver.
Beaver.
Were
there ever beavers in that area?
There must have been.
I just wondered. I don't remember ever hearing anybody say anything about it. Of course, what distant past, and we don't know what was there.
Well, what regrets do you have of your early childhood?
Not continuing my education and getting my college degree when I should have gone on and finished school. That's the worst mistake I think I ever made. Not going on to college, to high school and college.
I would think that getting your GED, your high school diploma, is your greatest accomplishment.
Well, it has been to some degree.
At 90 years old, he better believe it's an accomplishment.
What?
I said at 90 years old,
you
better believe it was an accomplishment for you.
They said I was the oldest man in the state of Florida to get a high school diploma. Not the oldest in the United States.
But the oldest to get your GED.
There's my New Testament in the Choctaw New Testament dictionary.
You want to hold these up?
This is the
dictionary.
But so many words I can't pronounce.
Who gave these to you?
I ordered them.
You ordered them.
I wrote to somebody in Bishnik and got information. There's a book on the Florida County that my sister sent me.
Yes.
And it's got a section on the Choctaw.
Oh, it does?
Chapter 2. Well, I should have. You want a shot of that? That's from Oklahoma. That's Little County, I think, mainly.
Do you want to tell us about this?
Oh, that is, that's a landmark at Scutterville.
A landmark? Okay, you want to
That's-
turn it around and tell about it?
I can't read it now. I can't see that good. But I'll hold it up for her.
It's upside down.
I don't, oh, is it? I don't know if you can get a picture of that or not. It's so dark in here.
I'll try.
Should we have more lines in here? This won't show up, I imagine, very plainly.
Do you want to tell us
There's
about these pictures?
There's my 3 kids.
Okay,
What
would
they
you
want.
like to tell us about your children?
Yes, there's my oldest son, my daughter, and my youngest son, who's dead now. I don't know if I can.
I'll take these, and you can hold
I
up
was
the
thinking.
pictures.
Let me scoot in. So
This was Don, not Donald, just Don, D-O-N. That's their oldest. It was our first child. He was born at Seminole, out in the oil field.
Literally.
Okay, this then is Latrell there, my daughter there. She was born
That
in
was the cute
Polo
one.
at 31. Tell you how old she is.
I already told him.
And this our youngest son, William, he was born in San Diego in 38. And he died last year, November 30th. Was it November or October?
November.
November.
October 30th.
November.
November 30th.
Were your children born in Oklahoma, Seminole?
Just my son, my oldest
Just your
son.
son
My daughter was born in Poto.
at Podo.
This boy was born in San Diego. And this is a picture of Vernon and the one that lives in Cumming, Georgia. I guess you've heard of her. Well, she mentioned Lily to me once about something. And I don't think you can get that one at all. Here is a picture of a hardware store in Seminole, Oklahoma, where I worked for about 2 years, 2.5 years as bookkeeper. I don't know if you can see it at all or not. It's a very damn picture.
Can you get his face?
just hold it down just a little bit.
Could you hold it down just a little bit so she can get your face?
Right.
Could you hold this down a little bit so she can see your face? And this was your store? Was this your store
This was a store where I worked. It belonged to Chestnut.
where you
Park.
worked at?
Yes,
I see.
I was bookkeeper there.
Uh-huh.
This is,
Look like some children in the field.
that's my dad and me and a neighbor boy in a hay meadow. That's, in Oklahoma. That was on our farm where I grew up.
On your farm.
And we had about 60 acres there of prairie hay.
What was the name of the farm?
Oh, it's just
Just a
my
farm.
mother's, part of my mother's allotment.
Oh, I
Our home-
see.
Our home place.
Mm-hmm. 60 acres?
There were 60 acres in this grass part.
Mhm.
And this is my sister that lives in Oklahoma now, and one of her children. That's Lucille.
How many grandchildren do you have?
Oh, I've got, how many grandchildren have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess. I don't know.
Well, there's Robbie and
Huh?
my 3. Robbie,
There were 3 and Bill, I had 3.
David. Well,
Michelle.
Well, of
Steve.
course,
Michelle.
Michelle's
Michelle,
gone now.
yeah.
I lost one. I've got 5 living. I've got
Oh,
2
5.
great grandkids.
2 great.
And you also have
3 great.
Yeah, you can
Michelle's
see
daughter also.
what I looked like when I was about 4 or 5 years old.
A handsome guy.
That was my oldest sister there. The photographer told me, said, you get a little closer to her, and I leaned my head over, and he said, that's fine.
What was her name?
Beulah.
Beulah. Were you named after your father, or?
I don't know where they got her name. My mother's middle name was Beulah. Flora
Oh, I
Beulah.
see. Uh-huh.
And this is the old home base. This is my dad and me, my mother and my older sister in our old farmhouse there where that hay meadow picture was made.
Was it 2 rooms or 3 rooms?
There was 2 rooms with a hallway between, big rooms,
Yes.
and then there was a row of rooms down the side. There's,
Did your father build that house?
Yes. Yes, he hauled lumber with a wagon and team for way through the day. He told me in the wintertime the ice was heavy enough on Brazil Creek for him to haul a load of lumber across on the ice without breaking through. This is a little, you're probably familiar with this.
Yes.
This is the only place that we've got any relatives mentioned in Oklahoma history. You see that bracket around that
Yes.
paragraph there? That was my great-grandfather.
Judge Jeremiah Ward
Yes,
was your great-grandfather.
right.
Might mention that this is an article in the social history of the Choctaw Nation from 1865 to 1907. 1865 to 1907. It mentions his great-grandfather, Judge Jeremiah Ward, a resident of Scullyville.
He was non-Indian.
He was non-Indian. His wife was Choctaw.
Yeah. She claimed to be full blood, but I asked one of my mother's aunts, I said, was Granny full blood? She said, no, her name was LaFleur. So I can't figure it. She's enrolled as full blood, though.
Enrolled as full blood.
And all of her sons, except Uncle Joe now, enrolled as full blood, but all the rest of them enrolled as half. So that made me 1/8. There's a document in here yet that I want to show.
I didn't see a document. Is it over there?
No, it's in this Bible. This thing's supposed to be in this book. Oh, I don't see it. Well, I don't know what it is, but it was just a little. It was a poem that a young lady wrote to me. There it is.
Would you like to read it?
I'm not a good reader. Can you read it for me?
Sure.
Let her get the picture if you wish. This is a poem that a young lady in the church that I pastored twice. She was just a little child, you might say, the first time, and then the last time I was there, she was married. And she is quite gifted as a poet. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I moved it too soon. You read that for her?
Yes. This is to Pastor Long from Janice Willis of the First Baptist Church of Zellwood. It says, for many years you guided us in good times and bad, and you were always faithful to give the best you had. Your encouragement brought us through some difficult days, and you were always there for us in oh so many ways. A leader God provided us, not just once, but twice. And though it was a sacrifice, you willingly paid the price. A little church up on the hill, not much in the world's eyes, but there the body of Christ gathers, so the Father too resides. You once said that I was like the sunshine in our dark room, and that has come to me at times as if a fresh new bloom, just as a radiant rose can bring a smile to someone's face. A loving, kind word lasts forever and can never be erased. You encouraged me to sing, and you insisted I could write, and you taught us to wear the armor and to fight the good fight. So may God bless you as you continue in His will. May this year be the best, and know we love you still. What year was this?
Oh, this was just a couple of years ago. She wrote that and said it. I was there. I retired from there in 48.
48.
No, I mean 84. 80. Yeah, 80. 82 or 84. 84, I guess.
Did you get a picture of this?
No, I didn't. Go ahead and bring it up.
Okay. This is the, what paper is this taken from? This is a news article in a newspaper, and it tells of a 90-year-old Ocoee man finally earns his degree, his GED. Jewell Vernon Long interviewed on Good Morning America. Being 90 years old did not stop Jewell Vernon Long of Ocoee from achieving a long-held goal. He recently became the oldest Florida resident to earn his GED and one of the 5 oldest people to do so in the whole country. And in this second article, I just want to mention that he said, I just decided I'd like to get it. He said, you got to keep your mind active when you're older, or you will lose it. That's wonderful.
Yeah, bought it too.
Just do it one at a time.
They came in here to set up their TV business, and we were on TV. They set up, we sat there on the Devonport. They lined up the cameras and took our picture, and we were on TV.
How do you feel about getting your high school diploma at this age?
Well, it was gratifying. I never could get a degree. I went to New Orleans to seminary, and I was there only 1 year. And I studied at Luther Rice. I studied through the extension department from seminary and from State University. I studied under local pastors and took courses in different churches in the area. But I never could get a degree because I didn't have a high school diploma. And of course, I was urged to go ahead and get my diploma earlier by some other pastors who had done the same thing. But I hesitated, never did do it, and so I never did get a degree, but I did get my high school diploma finally. And I feel good about it, kind of proud of it.
Sure.
That's it over there on that paper.
Jewell.
There's your plaque.
There you
Here's the diploma.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
yeah. The
I
diploma.
had this yesterday, though.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
There's a picture there under it.
Well, I think we had all of these. Was the picture of my teacher at the GED
Right.
school and me. You had that yesterday. Miss Trawick, Betty Trawick.
You didn't talk about this picture.
Beg your pardon?
You didn't talk about this picture.
Like this picture? Oh,
You
what
want
is
to
it?
tell us about that picture?
Well, this is an old couple that lives around Ocoee somewhere. Their name's Long. They live at 1906 Lawrence Avenue. I don't know when this picture was made now, sometime in the past. It's the third round for both of us. After 52 and a half years of my first wife died, and then I married an old schoolmate, and she only lived a little less than 8 years. And then about 2 or 3 years, and married a church organist.
So what was your life like living in a Christian home?
And as I grew up, you mean, it was a nominal Christian home. My parents went to church. They were baptized in the Possum Creek in Oklahoma. When I was about 12 or 13, my mother and me and my sister and my dad were all baptized. There was 2 of my uncles or 3. I don't know how many people, but there was a line of people as long as across this room went into that little creek that they would be baptized. But most of them was kin to me. Then we didn't have an organized church. He didn't have the right to baptize me, but he did. I wasn't baptized into a church. I was just baptized. And Baptists believe that your baptism is into your church membership or into a relationship with Christ as a group, you see, in the church. And they believe that you're saved by faith and you're baptized for obedience. But then they believed, well, we were baptized, that you were baptized to be saved. So later I was baptized in Water Vista over here in Lake San Sue when I joined the Baptist church.
Did you ever have a chance to talk with your grandmother about the removal to Oklahoma?
I never did get to talk to her about that, no. In fact, I remember when I was a little kid, very small, she came and spent a week or 2 at home. I don't know how long. She was there several days. And she had a sister that came with her. Her name was Mary. But they stayed, I told you about them smoking the clay pipe. And I can just remember them being there and remember them smoking those little clay pipes. That's about all I can remember. It was Granny and Mary, Aunt Mary. And then once, somewhere in that time frame, we were in her home for a few days, or maybe a weekend. That's when I told her about my pet booger. And that's the only time I was ever around her until just a year before she died. I got to see her. I went purposely to see her. She had lived at Sparrow, and I was working in the oil field out of Seminole, but I'd come home, and they told me that she was getting in pretty bad health, and I ought to go to see her, and I went to see her. And that's when she called me Nahola.
Were there any Choctaw traditions or customs that...
in our home?
Yes,
No, nothing more than, now when Mother's brothers would come there, they would talk to her in Choctaw, but she would always answer them in English. Uncle Jerry Ward and was the main one that came, and Dewey sometimes, but her dad would come by sometimes. I don't remember him ever talking Choctaw language. He and my dad were pretty good buddies. They liked to have a drink together.
Do you remember any kind of Choctaw food that you can think of?
Mother told me about tomfoolery. She said they used to go to the camp meetings, and she said, they make big washpots full of tomfoolery. And she said she went to one, and there was 2 Indian women cooking tomfoolery, and they had something like broomsticks that they stirred it with, Bunch of old hounds running around there, and the old hound come up, take that stick, hit the old hound over there, and then stir the tomfoolery. And she said I couldn't eat the stuff, save my neck.
Offie, huh? Too many Offie. Did you like the taste of it?
I never tasted it.
Oh, you never tasted it?
I never got to
When she
taste
told you
it.
that story?
She just told me about that when she was a
Yeah.
girl. She was a teenager. Now, my daughter can tell you something about her and her daughter. What did you and when they was going to go to the powwow in Mississippi, missed it?
Uh,
Huh?
I can't remember the name of the place. What was it,
Pittsburgh.
Chuck?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, Mississippi.
In Mississippi, there was
Well, we
Choctaw.
went to the
They
reservation
a
there.
powwow up there, and they went to Oklahoma and they came back through there. Was going to try to get back through there in time to attend, but they got there too late or too early.
Too late, I think it was that day.
Was there a reason why you ordered the dictionary and the Bible? Did you want to read it?
I just wanted to see if I could learn to read it, and with that dictionary help, I thought maybe. But I can't see too good. I've got glaucoma. I've only got one eye, and it's not very good anymore. This morning, I needed some. I was out of my heart medicine. I had to run over to the drugstore and get some heart medicine. And I drove over there and back, and I thought, while I was coming back, I've got to quit driving. I just can't see good enough. Especially on a cloudy day, and it's a little dark. If it's a bright sunny day, I can see pretty good. But, my eyes are going pretty fast now. My dad went blind with glaucoma before he was 70 years old. But they've been able, now with the new medications, they've been able to save mine so far. But the doctor that operated on this eye to remove the cataract wouldn't put an implant in. And somehow or other he did something that pulled a hole in the retina in the back. And it's been there so long now they won't fix it. Can't fix it. Won't try. They say they can't fix one that old. It's about 20 years old. Older.
What do you think about all these new inventions and gadgets?
Well, from my lifetime, I've seen a lot of change. From horse and buggy to space travel, it's quite a step forward. And it seems to tell me that man is getting too smart, and the good Lord's going to have to stop him one day. And I don't think it's too far off. Of course, nobody knows when that's going to take place.
Do you remember the first time the telephone was invented?
I don't remember that, but I remember the first telephone we ever had. We lived out, do you know where Shady Point is? You know where Poto is?
Yes,
You know, 29 runs north.
yes.
About 6 miles north of Poto 8 is Shady Point, little town. They ran a telephone line from there west, 8 miles to where we lived, and put a telephone on every farmhouse all the way on that one line. Everybody had a short or long, 2 shorts or whatever their ring was, you rang it. And you never could get the telephone, there's always somebody on it. Too many people on one line. There's been of course, then the next thing was Model Ts.
Mike, you want to put this
Yeah.
phone in the bracket?
Then they had to build
And
roads for
we'll stop
them.
that noise.
Can you hand it over to me?
One thing after another they've had to take as it come. They've had to improve it.
Yes. What invention has impacted your life the most?
What invention has affected my life the most? Oh, I don't know. Automobile, I imagine, because this transportation, you just about got to have one now to get around, to go anywhere. I've never been much to fly. I have flown a little, but now the first time I ever went in a plane, there was a little Cracker Cub, two seats, two people could ride in. And I was pastor of a little mission right down here at the First Baptist Church, Garden, and one of the deacons had a little airport back here. And he told me if I would fix up the announcements like he wanted to, we'd fly over the community and drop them. Then you could do that. Now it's pollution, you can't do that. But we'd put a little plastic bag and put a Gospel of John in there and an announcement of the revival and a tract of some kind. And we took a roll of crepe paper and we cut it in strips about that wide. And we folded that back and forth over the length of that bag and stapled it to it at one end. And folded it on there and put a rubber band around about 10 of them in a package. And we boxed them up. And I sat in the back and I'd break the band and hand them to him and he'd drop them over the side. And of course that crepe paper would stream out, as he dropped them, and we would watch them as they fell and see the people, see them coming down, they'd be running out from everywhere, picking them up, see what they were. And it was kind of exciting to see that. And to get up there, this was all in orange groves then, and some of the prettiest sights you ever saw was fly over an orange grove that had been freshly cultivated and clean. See how straight those rows were and how clean they were and how nice that grove looked from there. It was altogether different from being down there chopping weeds in it.
What crops did you grow on your farm?
In Oklahoma,
Uh-huh.
we grew cotton, corn, peanuts, and then, of course, we grew vegetables. We always had a big vegetable garden. But cotton and corn and peanuts, and we always planted an acre of potatoes for an early cash crop, for the spring cash crop have money to finish our crop with. And then
Idea.
sold our potatoes, and we had enough money to run us through till we sold a bale of cotton or a load of peanuts. But we got to sell it. We got to grow peanuts for the market just before I quit farming. It hadn't been done too much up there up until then. People grew them for feed a lot. And I used to take a wagon load, I'd put a load of that peanut hay and some corn, cotton seed, and first one thing the other, mix it all up in the wagon, take it over to the hammer mill and throw it in, have it ground up, feed it to my cows. It was good feed.
Did you go to school when you were 6 or 7? Did you go to school when you were 6?
I think I started at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first school I went to was almost a disaster. My dad was on the school board in a little country school, one-room schoolhouse. And the school teacher was a young woman that boarded with us, May Evans. And she didn't like me. I don't know why. But we went one day at school. I hadn't been to school but just a few days. I don't know if it was the first day or a few days after I started. A boy about 15 years old got up and walked up to the front to ask the teacher something about his book. You know, he had his book in his hand, and he asked her something, and she talked to him about it, and he turned around and started back to his seat. And I just looked up as he come back down toward the aisle, toward where I was sitting. And when I looked up, he made a funny face at me, and I laughed out loud. And she called me up to the front and took a switch and just whipped me, and she cut the blood out of my legs from my ankles to my hips. I mean, she tore me up for laughing out loud. And never did say a word to him. And I never did understand it. But I know she didn't get to school for another year. She was gone after the term was over.
How far did you live from that school?
About 3/4 of a mile. We walked, rain or shine, snow or sleet.
But you were all bundled up.
If it was cold and there was snow on the ground, I had those old overshoes with buckles on them, and said buckle over your top of your shoes. I had a sweater, I had an overcoat, I had gloves, I had a cap with air flaps. They bundled me up to keep me warm. And I'd get so hot, I'd get sweating, and I'd begin to open up my coats. And then I'd take cold while I was perspiring in that cold air. And I'd be coughing my head off the next day. I had pneumonia twice when I was real small. When I was about a year old, they said, and when I was 5. Because I remember when I was coming out of it when I was 5 the last time, I remember, I don't know where I got the idea, but I wanted something to eat. I wanted some cornbread and sorghum molasses. Mother wouldn't give them to me. She afraid it'd kill me. The doctor came by and see about me that day, and she asked him about it, and he said, oh, it won't hurt him. He won't eat any of it. Give it to him. So she fixed me some and brought it to me, and I couldn't eat it. Took a bite, and that was it.
Before they had penicillin, what kind of medication did the doctor you with?
I don't remember. Quinine and castor oil. Mother used to make up a bunch of stuff. She put turpentine and kerosene and
Sugar.
and tallow. She used beef tallow in it, and she'd take a wool cloth about that, just big enough to cover my chest area, and she'd sew some strings on it to tie around my neck and around my waist. And she'd dip it in that hot stuff, you know, and get it hot and dip that in it and wring it out, and then she'd put that on me. And put my undershirt on over that. And I wore that all winter.
Same one?
Yeah, I'd have it freshened up all the time, you know, cleaned up, but I have to wear that thing every time.
Do you remember?
Beg pardon.
Do you remember how they made soap? Do you?
Oh yeah, Mother used to make soap. She had an ash hopper out in the backyard where the rainwater come in, and they had a drip place down there for the acid, for the light to drip into. And then she'd take that and take the fat from when they killed hogs. She'd take the entrails and pull the fat off of that, and pull the fat off of that they trimmed off of the meat and the cracklings and stuff, put it all together and wash pot and cook it down and make soap out of it. When it got cool, she'd cut it up into bars.
Did that poultice work?
Do what?
Did that poultice work? The poultice that she put on you, did that work?
Well, I would anyhow. I don't know.
It made you sick just smelling it, didn't it?
I imagine it made a lot of people sick to get around me. But a lot of kids had to wear them then.
Instead of having a mustard plaster, you had to plaster all the time, huh?
That wasn't mustard. It wasn't no mustard.
That's what I said, instead of a mustard plaster,
Yeah,
you just wore one all the time.
yeah.
Till
One fellow told me, he said, you know, he talked about some boys that didn't have any education, and their dad didn't either, and they were farmers. He said he was walking, cut across their field one day afoot, going somewhere. One of them was plowing out there in the field early in the spring, and it was a pretty warm day in the middle of the last of April. And he said that old boy was sweating and plowing, and he said, boy, I'll sure be glad when May gets here. He said, why? He said, Paul won't let me put on my winter underwear till May. He said, I'm burning up. Yeah, well, them old long handlers and plow till it got so hot, he's burning up.
Did you have any Choctaw friends? Any Choctaw buddies?
Oh, we had, as I said, the Whistlers there was the only full-bloods that lived right by us, and then there was some James. There was a little boy, Lester James, and everybody had fun with Lester. He was little, short-legged, but he could outrun anybody in school nearly. And they'd get picking at him and holler, "Hoogly, Lester!" And he'd take after him. There weren't many of them could outrun him. He'd just about catch him. Hoogly. Does that mean catch it?
Yes. Did they teach you Choctaw words?
Sometimes, Raymond and Lena Whistler, they didn't talk Choctaw hardly ever at all. They both talked a little pretty broken English though. And their daddy, Martin, got drunk one time and he whipped his wife. And he got on his horse and rode off and was gone several days. And they lived not quite joining farms to us, down the road a place, a quarter of a mile. So, and she came up to the house and was telling my dad and mother about how he beat her up and left. She was worried about him then. And after a few days, Martin come by on horseback. We'd been off somewhere on this big drunk, and Dad said, "Martin, where you going?" He said, "I'm on my way home." He said, well, I don't know whether your wife's going to let you come home or not. Said she's kind of mad at you, that you treated her pretty bad. Yeah, but I've been gone now a while, and I think maybe so she'd be pretty glad to see me. He went, well, you get.
Hello. I'm sorry, who? You have a wrong number.
Lena married Harkin, Adam Harkin. Did you know any Harkin? And one of Mama's aunts said Adam was part black, but she knew the family from way back, but he was good to his wife and kids.
Do you remember when
Right.
Choctaws used to have slaves too?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I was telling you about this Indian that I worked for in the Indian project there in Oklahoma. When the Blue Jacket said we got the allotment of land from the Republican administration, and he said, yeah, and they give it to the blankety blank Negro too. Well, they did give to the freedmen slaves, you know. They gave them 40 acres of land. I've never exactly read the history on that. Just was it the Indian slaves? Did the Indians have slaves?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking the other day, our preacher preached a message a couple Sundays ago about the founding fathers in this country came here to seek a place of religious freedom. They came here to find a place where they could worship God freely, because they were imprisoned and abused in Europe and England especially. And they established this government here upon Christian principles, and this nation was, and how they wrote up the Constitution and everything, and I was sitting there listening and thinking, yeah, they would build a fine Christian country. They robbed the Indians, and then they couldn't rob, they killed, and then they went down to Africa and captured blacks and brought them up here and made slaves out of them. That's a good Christian family, a good Christian religion. Kill the Indians and enslave the blacks.
That's what you call getting out from persecution and then persecuting.
Do you remember when you first voted?
I remember the first president I voted for.
And who was that?
I'm ashamed to tell you.
Herbert?
Herbert Hoover. I was working in the oil fields at Seminole. I hadn't paid much attention to politics. I was 23 when I got married, and I was getting married, and when my first child was born, I lived out on an oil lease, on a company lease, a little shack that I had built out there. And Hoover was running against Al Smith. Well, Al Smith was Catholic. But you know, the Ku Klux Klan was strong in Oklahoma at that time, all through the West and Southwest, Midwest, and everywhere nearly over the country. my dad got in his Model T and drove all the way out to something over 150 miles, 140 miles anyhow, to where I lived, and spent a few days with me. He said, son, we've always been Democrats, we've always voted Democrats, but now we can't afford to put a Catholic in the White House. We've just got to vote for Herbert Hoover this time. We just don't have any choice. And I listened to him. And some woman called me here when they're taking a poll and wanted to know, said, are you going to vote for George Bush or are you going to vote for Al Gore? I said, lady, you got a redneck Democrat on this line. You're not talking Republican to me anymore. I said, I voted for Herbert Hoover one time. I've been crying about it ever since. Then she wanted to know if I was going to vote for Bill McCollum or Bill, what's his name?
Nelson.
Chuck.
Gore?
Bill
No,
Nelson.
no, Bill McCollum and
Oh, and Bill.
Cotton.
Nelson.
Huh? Who was running against Bill McCollum?
Nelson.
Huh?
Nelson.
The other one was Bill
Bill
Nelson.
Nelson, yeah. I said, you know, I told you I'm a redneck Democrat. I'm going to vote for Bill Nelson. I'm going to vote a straight Democrat ticket, top to bottom. I don't ever intend to vote for another Republican. Of course, I might change my mind, you know, if it come time, but there's really somebody that I thought was a better man for the job. But I haven't had it this year. I haven't seen it this year. You know, the funny thing about this election, George Bush come out running strong on giving back a big tax cut to, and Clinton's come out and said he's going to give it back to the rich, and which was true. And Gore took that up, and Gore said, I'm going to take that surplus money, I'm going to fix Social Security, and I'm going to pay down some on the national debt. And the next day or two, his votes began to climb, and he began to catch up with Bush and go ahead, and Bush changed his tactics completely. He began to talk about what he was going to do for the seniors, what he was going to do for Medicaid, what he was going to do for medicine for the seniors, and how he was going to fix Social Security. And then he ran on that the rest of the time. Changed completely. So I don't trust him. But I don't know if you want that in your history or not.
What kind of sports did you play when you were a young boy?
Not too much of anything. I tried football and played a part of the first game, and I had a hernia I had to have fixed. I got an acute attack of appendicitis. I had a double surgery. The doctors told me not to try to play football anymore. And the coach was my science teacher. And he got me in class one day before the class and said, you know, said some of our people quit playing because they're yellow. I said, I don't believe you'll come outside with me and tell me I'm yellow. Well, let's get back to the subject. He said, let's get back to the class now. Boy, he stopped it right then.
So you don't have a favorite team?
A favorite team?
You don't have a favorite team?
A football team, you mean?
Or any sport?
Oh, I kind of I gotta lean toward Florida. They've been such a nice team, and I like Oklahoma too. You know, you get kind of torn between your native state and your home state where you live. They're both good teams now. Nebraska's a good team, but they've never been my favorite. Of course, I just don't know anything about them, you know. I don't know the Nebraska team, anybody. I like Tiger Woods for a golfer.
Tiger Woods.
Yeah. He's really, he has really moved up from just an amateur to the greatest player in the world in 2 years' time.
If you were to encourage anyone in education, how would you encourage them, or what?
Whatever you do, finish school, don't stop. Go on through, get your high school diploma, and go to college if at all possible. When I was in seminary, I didn't have high school, I didn't have any college. But I remember one of the professors one day was talking to a group, and he said, there's one thing that so many people overlook and bypass, and that's your college education. You get your high school diploma and go to seminary. But he said, if there's any one thing you need above the other, between the college and seminary, it would be college. You need that college. That's the most important part of your education. When you get your understanding, you get your knowledge, then you can go ahead and get your degree in your theology without any trouble. I had a friend in New Orleans that graduated from high school. Never went to high school, graduated from the 8th grade, rather. Took the entrance exam and went to college. Got a degree without ever going to high school.
Do you remember Billy Mills?
Who?
Billy Mills? You
No.
remember him?
No.
He was, who's that, Thorpe? Jim Thorpe? Do you remember Jim Thorpe?
Oh yeah, Jim Thorpe was a great football player.
Billy Mills was a runner.
You remember Billy Mills as a runner?
I've heard of him, but I just hadn't thought about it till he said he's a runner, and I remember hearing something about it. But Jim Thorpe was, he's been in the news and on the tongue of so many people so many times. I guess everybody's heard of Jim Thorpe. Should know who he is. And I've heard of his history about the trouble he had, the way that he won, and how he was accused of not getting it fairly and giving it up, and then they're trying to give it back to him. But he's still got the record for being the greatest in his field. Let's see, he was from Mississippi, wasn't he? Oh, he was from Pennsylvania, wasn't he? He was in Pennsylvania when he went to college. Didn't he go to school in Pennsylvania?
He was from Oklahoma. He
Yeah,
went
but
to
he went-
school in Pennsylvania.
He went to school in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Because I saw something about him as we went through Pennsylvania. I saw signs and something about Jim Thorpe a few years ago. We went to New York. We went through. Yeah.
Well,
I guess the greatest achievement the Indians have been credited with is the ones that they used the Choctaw language in the army in the war to carry their messages.
Yeah, she had a picture of that.
Huh?
She had a picture of the talkers.
Code
Yeah.
talkers.
Code talkers. You call them. I guess that's one of the greatest achievements as far as the world's concerned. That the greatest credits they've gotten from anywhere for that, because
That code couldn't be broke.
of course now the other countries are studying the Choctaw language and the Indian languages over here, and
she teaches on the internet.
yeah, but I
She
don't have
teaches on the
internet.
internet.
I don't have internet. I don't have a computer. I wouldn't know what to do with it if I had it. I'm too far out from that.
How do you feel about the Choctaw language being taught
I think
throughout
it's
the
great.
country?
I think it's great that anybody that wants to learn it. And you know, there's a group of young people, part Indians, and some of them are Choctaws and different tribes up here at Apapa. They came to our seniors and they put on some of the dances and things for us at one time. Or they had it a couple of times up there. They had a hoop dance. They had a lot of hoops that they used. They'd pick them up with their toes and throw them around. And they just have hoops hanging all over them when they got through. But some of those saw my ID card, and they were amazed. How'd you get that? Where do you get that from? Can you prove your ancestry? Can you prove you've got somebody that's enrolled? You write to the Department of Interior and get it. And I haven't seen many of them since that. I don't know. They were really highly interested in that. Their leader took the card and passed it around among them and showed them all what I had. And they thought that was great. They all wanted one. There's a part Choctaw. I don't know what degree of blood he is, but he shows pretty strong. He's probably half or more in our association, in our Baptist work here in Orange County. But I don't know what church he's in. I could call the association office and find out, but I should have called him. Maybe he'd like to come over and join in with this.
He lives here? Does he live here?
I don't know where he lives. Yeah, he lives somewhere in Florida. He's working in a Baptist church somewhere. I don't know if he's a pastor or if he's assistant pastor or if he's some other officer in the church, but he's in this Baptist work here. And whether he's doing some kind of mission work, I don't know. I know that I was introduced to him. I went with another friend to a associational meeting, a couple of years ago. And the preacher that knew me from way back said, we got the oldest preacher in our association here today, J.B. Long. And they had me stand up, and he said he's a Choctaw Indian. So somebody else spoke up and said, yeah, we got another Choctaw here, and he come over and shook hands with me. But I didn't get to talk to him. It was in the meeting, and went right on. The MC was up there in charge, and he just carried the meeting right on through. And when it was over, the man I rode with was ready to come home, and I didn't get to stop and talk to anybody.
Well, we appreciate your time, Mr. Long.
Well, I appreciate you coming. I tell you, it's been a blessing to me to have you come. And I've enjoyed it. I wish I could tell you more of family history related to Choctaw business and work, but I just don't know enough about my mother's people. Now, she's got relatives still around Sparrow, Gulliver. There's one girl, one of my granddad's brother's granddaughter, got some gas wells on her property. And she built her a 3-story brick home. And she put an apartment on each floor. She's got 2 kids that's married. And when they come home, each one of them has a floor. She stays on the ground floor, and her husband. And the other 2 families go the 2nd and 3rd floor. She built that for her whole family. And my mother was like that. She said, one time, she said, I just wish all my kids would bring all their kids and just come and live with me. I went to her burial place a few years ago. And my sister had put a nice headstone there since the funeral. I hadn't been back since the funeral till then. And I walked up there and was reading the inscriptions. One of my cousins, his nanny did, walked up to me and said, Jewell, right there lays the best Indian that ever lived. Talking about my mother. When he was a little boy, he said, when there was 2 of the boys, there was actually 3 of the boys, when the baby was born, the 2 oldest ones, my mother kept them while their mother was in the hospital for a long time. She almost died. And he said, you know, said we were scared to death of Uncle Will, but said that Florida just let us do anything we wanted to do. We just have a good time. They'd take the old cane-bottom chairs and lay them down, tie them together, and drag them around and make that their train. Drag them through the house, you know, old log cabin now. And out on the porch and back in through the house, kitchen, dining area, living room, dining bedroom. And he said they'd get my dad's saddle and put it on, had a big old oak barrel up on a stand out there, something in it, I don't remember what. But they'd get that saddle and put it up on that barrel and ride that for their horse. And said, on the afternoon, time for my dad to come in, said, Mom would say, all right, kids, straighten things up. I see Will coming. Boy, I said, we was scared of him. It was a bear. I said, we'd grab them chairs and untie them and set them up and put them in place and get everything straightened up and be sitting up there just as nice, about the nicest bunch of kids you ever saw. When he come in, everything was right back in place.
Did you make the chairs out of cane?
And the cane bottom, the bottom
The
of it
bottom was cane.
laced in with cane. You never saw a cane bottom chair?
I think I have.
There was round wood pieces put together, and had a slight back, or round. I don't know, maybe they had just round stays in the back, but they had cane laced in the bottom. That's a cheap chair. When I was growing up, we had them around on the farm. All the farmers had them.
How did you make toys? How did y'all make...
Oh, we had stick horses. Now, Christmas time, I'd hang up my stocking by the fireplace. And Christmas morning, I'd get up and I'd run to that stocking, and I'd have maybe a toy pistol. First it'd be maybe an apple or an orange down in the bottom. And it'd be a little bag of candy. And then there would be a toy. And maybe a banana or two, something like that. That was our Christmas. And we just had a good time. We thought we had a great gift. If we had a toy pistol, it was big enough to run and play with some caps to shoot and pop and make a noise. We had a good time. That was Christmas.
What was your Christmas dinner like? What kind of food?
Oh, I tell you, I can remember some of the Christmas dinners that we had that the table was so full of food you hardly had room to sit down and put your plate on. There was a black man, an ex-slave named B. Boyd, lived about 3 miles south of where we lived. And one year, my dad was feeling kind of liberal, and he wanted to have a bunch of friends in for Christmas dinner. And he got B to cook Christmas dinner. B was an excellent cook. And he pulled him an old easy chair of some kind, I don't remember what it was, into the kitchen. Had a big old wood stove, one of those old home comfort range with a reservoir on it. And you crank over to the firebox or roll it away with that little space where it wouldn't get hot. And B come in there and he'd stay 2 or 3 days cooking. He cooked his own light bread and everything. And he used to tease me. He'd say, you know, last night while you were sleeping, that bread rose up and had to be worked down. So I just set that big old pan down on the floor and I pulled off my shoes and I just got in there and I just worked that bread down. But you didn't know anything about it, so you didn't know, it didn't bother you. Yeah, he teased me all the time about things like that. But that man could cook, I'm
sure he was
telling you.
teasing?
And one of my dad's half-brothers, one year my mother used to cook for the hay hands when they'd bale hay, you know. But one year she was sick, she just wasn't able to do it. She told Dad, said, you're going to have to get somebody to cook. So B. Boyd happened to come by about that time. He said he wasn't busy, didn't have anything to do, lived alone. He'd cook for him. Dad said, okay, B. Now, there's one thing. One of my brothers here said he would not eat a Negro's cooking. I want you to cook the dinner and get it on the table. When you call them to dinner, I want you to stay outside. Let them all get in and get down to eating good, and maybe by the time they need something replenished, you step in and say, gentlemen, this is something I can do for you, and something more I can get for you, or something like that. And he did that. And they all got in there and got started eating, and my uncle said, man, Flaw has really improved in her cooking. Boy, this is good food. And he was just really enjoying every bite he was eating. And people had stepped in and said, gentlemen, is anything more you need, anything else? He said, that man can cook for me any day he wants to. All he did cooking and said he's a cook. But he cooked Christmas dinner. He cooked turkey. He cooked a ham. He cooked cakes. He made light bread. I don't know what all. And we had about 4 families, 3 or 4 families in for Christmas dinner. One table at a time. The kids would play and the old folks ate first. And I tell you, we had food. There was never any shortage of food at our house. I never remember any time, even during the war, when there was any complaint or any shortage of food. My dad was a provider. He was a manager. He raised hogs to kill for meat, and he had a smokehouse, and it was always full of meat. And we didn't kill beef much. Later on in life, he got to raising some sheep, and he'd kill a sheep now and then. But I never did like meat. Mutton is too fat. I like pork. I was raised on pork. I eat pork. I like sausage. I like ham. Any kind of pork, just so it's cooked right. But food was never any question. We had one of the finest garden spots. We had big old tomatoes that big and onions, and I used to come home from school. Mom would have some of that old fatback meat fried up, and left over from breakfast, and sitting in what we call an old safe, a pie safe, She'd have a shelf, and then have a platter full of that sitting in there, and I'd get me a chunk of cornbread when I come home from school, get a piece of that. And I'd go to the garden and pull me up an onion and go get me a big tomato, and I'd have me a feast. And then that'd do me to supper time.
How did you preserve the meat?
Do I?
How did you preserve the meat?
Well, when we killed the meat, usually in November, before Thanksgiving, any time from 1st November to Thanksgiving, any what they call fly-free days, when it was cool enough there was no flies, we could kill hogs and cool the meat out. We would rub it with salt on both sides, turn it with the skin up, the flesh down, spread it out on a shelf, let the water or as much wood drain out of it. And sometimes, if it was doubtful, we'd take a knife and cut separate the joints in the ham and put salt down in it. And then we'd let it lay there overnight and drain. The next day, we'd go in there They had a big old box. It's that deep. And we put a layer of salt, a layer of meat, a layer of salt, a layer of meat, till we got that box full. No meat touching meat. There's salt between everything. We let it lay in there about 3 weeks. We would take it up and wash that all off. And then sometimes I don't remember what it was they put on some kind of spices. They put on hang it and build a hickory smoke or a sassafras smoke under it and smoke it for weeks. That'd be some of the best ham and the best meat you ever tasted. It was really good. And it kept. And you could let it there all summer. It didn't spoil. But while it was fresh, it would spoil now if you got a warm day on it. One time, he had killed hogs and filled that smokehouse up, and it just rained and turned warm, and they couldn't save it. It just began to smell bad. He just drove a team of horses and wagon up there by the smokehouse and loaded that up, had a wagon bed full. There was a black woman come up there and did mother's washing that day. And she said, Mr. Long, what you going to do with that meat? He said, well, it's kind of spoiled. We're going to just haul it off out in the woods and throw it out and let the wild animals have it. She said, give it to me. He said, if you want it, you can have it. But he said, I tell you, it's spoiled. She come over and picked up some of it and smelled and food it. She said, I can take all that out of that. And he said, well, how are you going to do it? She said, I'll show you. And he took it over there to their place and unloaded it where she wanted it. And they told him that they buried that in the ground for so many hours. And it took all of that taint out of it. I don't know if it did or not. But they used it. They ate it.
Where did you get the salt?
Huh?
Where did you get the salt?
Oh, he bought salt in a barrel, by a barrel full. We used to get salt by the barrel. And we'd have a barrel of salt before we killed hogs. We'd have a barrel of salt, a small barrel, and it'd be sitting in the smokehouse ready to open up and use. And,
Did they import the salt?
imported.
Where did they?
Oh, then in my lifetime, you could go to town and buy it at the grocery store. They'd have it at that time of the year. They'd buy it by the barrel and have it in stock for the farmers that used it that way. And you know, they didn't have cake salt for animals, and a lot of people bought it that way to have salt to cows and things. Their animals put salt out for their animals all the time. They'd have regular boxes fixed to put salt in for the cows to go and lick salt. And we used to take it back out on the range in the summertime, take a bag of salt, tie it on the saddle, and go back in the hills and round up a bunch of cattle, put some salt out on some rocks or on some stumps, leave it out there. Then when they come out with this rock salt and big rock salt, which is a 50-pound block or 25-pound block, whichever, I don't remember now which it was. Take it out there and set it up, and it'll last. Even the deer would come and lick the salt.
There's a church back in Oklahoma called Big Lick.
What was that?
Big Lick. I figured that it's because they had some big salt licks.
Deer lick, huh?
Deer licks.
Yeah.
It must have been deer licks.
Yeah, they had places where the deer went to. they could find salt in the dirt somewhere, and they called it dirt, deer lick, in the rock or something. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, after that, did you want to ask him what the songs are? Does he remember any singing?
Do you remember any Choctaw singing?
I remember a fellow named Jonico, who was a Baptist preacher. And he used to preach a while in Choctaw, and then he'd preach in English at the same, translated. And I don't remember any singers much in Choctaw. But now, I was pastor of a mission over here to Oakland. And Willie King was a missionary from Oklahoma down here to the Seminoles in the Everglades. And one of the ladies in the community over there was in the women's auxiliaries, knew Willie King, and she asked me if she could invite him up to preach for her sometime. I said, sure. And she said, how about him bringing some of his young folks to sing? And I said, let's have the whole thing. Let's have an Indian program. And so they came up, and he preached, and the young people sang in the language, in the Seminole language. Of course, I didn't understand any of it. But Willie King preached in English. It's broken English, very broken English. But one time they called me after I'd left the church and somebody else had been pastoring a long time. They called me and said, Willie King's supposed to be here on a certain Sunday. Well, thought maybe you'd like to come. And I said, yeah, I sure want to come. So I went, and Willie King did the show. The next Saturday night, I lived up a half a mile up the road here, up on that hill. My son Bill is dead, was a teenager. The car pulled in the driveway, and it's getting dark. And they're all full blood, and it was pretty dark, and Bill was a kid. And one of them asked him, said, we looking for Oakland Baptist Church? He said, let me get my dad, he can tell you. So he come in the house and said, Dad, there's a carload of niggers out there that want to know where Oakland Baptist Church is. And I said, I know who that is. I went out in the yard and I said, is Willie King in that car somewhere? He stuck his head out. How you know I'm in here? I said, because you were supposed to be in Oakland last Sunday. Oh, no, I'm supposed to be there this tomorrow. No, I said, well, they told me, I went over there. They told me to come. You was going to be there. There's nobody over there tonight. I believe it. I believe you're wrong. I believe there's somebody there. I said, now, Willie, you come get in the car with me. I'll take you, and the boys can follow us. The boys and girls can follow in their car. You come get in the car with me. We'll go over there. We drove over there, and the church was dark and nobody around it. And I said, Willie, there's nobody here, and they're not going to be here tonight. Well, he said, I don't know what to do. He said, I need to go out. If I knew where Miss Jones lived, I said, well, I know where she lives. You want to go out there? He said, yeah. We went out there. And I was just building my house. I just had it messed up, half finished. I didn't have any way to take care of anybody. So, we got over there, and she said, brother-in-law, there was 3 or 4 girls, and Willie and 2 or 3 boys. And she said, I'll take care of the girls if we can find a place for Willie and the boys. He said, well, now if I could get over to Wadey Morris's house, would have a place, and Wadey Morris lived in Orlando, and I just happened to know Wadey Morris, knew where he lived. He was Seminole from Oklahoma. And I said, well, Willie, I know Wadey Morris, and I know where he lives. Let's call him. So I called over there, and his wife answered the phone. I said, is Wadey home? She said, yes, brother-in-law, but said Wadey's not in any shape to talk to anybody on the phone. He's had too many drinks. And I said, well, I'll tell you what the problem is. We got Willie King and 2 or 3 boys, I don't remember which, over here. And they've made a mistake on the date, and they're supposed to have been here last Sunday. Now, they got no place to spend the night. She said, bring them over here. We'll take care of them. So I took them to Orlando to Wade's house, and he kind of sobered up and got up and met us and talked to us a while. About 2 years after that, I pulled in the parking lot over there, and I saw this gray-headed Indian coming toward me. And I thought that guy looks kind of familiar. And he come on up and said, hey, he said, I haven't seen you in a good while. And I said, no, I didn't recognize you. I said, you got white-headed since I saw you. He said, I've had a lot of trouble. He said, I lost my wife. But he said, you know something? I haven't had a drink in 2 years. I'm free of it now. I said, well, next thing now is get right with the Lord. He said, I've already done it. He said, man, everything's changed for me. He said, my wife said she was my life. He said, I don't know what I'll do without her. He said, I'm having trouble. But I never did see him anymore. That's the last time I ever saw him. He come to my house one morning. Before that, about half drunk, him and his brother. I had just got up and didn't even have my shoes on. Somebody knocked at the door. And I went to the door and opened the door, and he said, preacher, I've got to have somebody pray for me. I'm going to go to hell. I said, what's the matter? He said, you know, I killed a man. I haven't got forgiveness for it. He said, I'm just under conviction. I can't stand it. He said, I got to have help. And I said, come on in. They came in. I got my Bible. We read some scripture and talked a while. I said, now you have to forgive yourself. First thing. Realizing now that you've done something wrong, you have to ask God to forgive you, and He's promised to do that when you ask Him to. He will forgive you, and He'll save you. And if you'll stay straight, He'll keep you saved. And if He saves you, you'll stay saved anyhow. Well, we had prayer together, and I don't know whether he ever drank anymore or not. He left there saying he's good with it, but he was still pretty full. And his brother, worse than he was drunk every weekend. He worked in the carpenter crew that I worked in, and he'd come out most every Monday. He was off. He wasn't able to go to work. And the next day he was so nervous he couldn't get up on the house. He'd have to work on the ground. He'd have to stay on the ground and work. He couldn't work up on the roof.
Well, Mr. Long, we want to bless you with a song, Choctaw song.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing Grace.
It's the 53 first and then Amazing Grace.
Chitokakana chiha sobisha it weleche tapa laleka awedisa makbana manava Thaleka etama Christ ayawet esame esaji kiyomana salahe banoshke Christ ayawet esame Hisashki Keyok Mano Salahe Banoshki Tale Vole Somecha Nanasi Yagne Lapa Mashayo Mekano Isamakmano Chia Nilawa Christ Apano Osaba Hanashki Christ Yahweh Esame Keyokmano salahe panoshki Christ Yahweh isame isashki Keyokmano salahe panoshki. The title of that song is Give Me Christ or Else I Die. Beautiful song. Now we want to sing another one, Amazing Grace. Shalom Besho Leto Pama Ishmetepo Lacha Hata Keba Shapi Yaha
much.
I wish you'd come over to my church in the morning and sing that for us in church.
You could.
We'll be here tomorrow, so we could.
You'll be here tomorrow?
We won't leave till tomorrow afternoon.
Come over tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock and we'll go up to my church at 11. And I'll get the preacher to let you sing that Amazing Grace in Choctaw.
All right.
Would you?
Yes.
We'll be here about 10:30.
I'd love to.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we'll
You've done
see
so
you in
much
the
for
morning.
me. You don't know how much you've done for me.
You
I tell you, this
take it over
has been
there
great.
with him. You might move that table out like we did yesterday.
But he didn't get in it, so I thought.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, this is how we did yesterday. We just knelt beside his chairs. Mr. Long, tell me who this young man is.
This is Mike Ellington. This is my grandson. This is Latrell's son.
I'm camera shy.
Could you tell us about you?
About me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, about the internet, what you joined on the internet.
I'm an artist and musician. And I do portraiture and wildlife art.
Anybody out
And
there?
I've been getting involved in Native American websites. And I just recently joined one called Smoke Signals, which I don't know that much about it yet, but it's an artist group.
This boy's an artist. He can do anything with a pencil or a brush or a spray gun or whatever. He's good.
And
He can make a pencil sketch of you that looks just like a photo.
I'm 45 years young.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and get some close-ups. Okay.
She got picture. They had my picture yesterday.
Oh, my name's Mike, too.
And I told him I was 25, and you told me you were 45. Now that killed that.
Okay.
It's still on.
You haven't broken it yet?
It's still running.
It still works?
It should be broken by the time you took his picture.
I'm a member of the tribe, too.
Yeah, we are. I was going to get your card. It's like this.
I give you one.
And this.
Okay.
And with this.
This light over there beside. Great.
Thank you.
Just like the publicity was light over there.
This can stand here.
sure to get your full names too before you leave. Not just Lily and Hannah, I want your last name too.
That's the allotted land. Okay.
Give them that too.
What was this a book of? Was this a history of LaFleur
History of the
County?
LaFleur County.
Okay. This is a book that was sent to Mr. Long from his sister. This is a history of LaFleur County of Oklahoma.
Good to see you. Good meeting you.
Is it raining out there, Bill?
Mike.
Is it raining out there?
No.
I thought it looked like it was raining. We're supposed to get it this afternoon. Did you get all the dust? The trail? Did you get all the dust so they could pick that up too? My housekeeper, this is so hot.
Would I get in trouble if I copied my sister's tapes, Indian language tapes? If I made a copy of them,
You made a copy of it?
of her tapes, she's got the tapes of Indian language.
That'd be okay.
Can I make a tape of
Sure.
it?
And I can also send you his own copies. You can do that.
We could send you your own copy.
I'd like to get some of those too.
How much do they cost, you know?
No cost.
No cost?
No cost.
Oh, thank you.
We'll send it to you. We'll send it to you.
I'd love to have that.
Was this a picture of
I
him?
learned some of them, I won't learn much, but
This
the memory's not good now.
This
like it
is
used to be.
his ranch, his farm ranch. And this is the 60 acres that was allotted to his family, his mother.
And this was her and the two boys?
And this is, I think this must be him.
Vernon, little Choctaw.
When did you go like that?
Likes it as much as Wendy, yeah. Mike likes it as much as Wendy.
Yeah,
Almost.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's I think they said this was his father. This is a copy of Mr. Long's Outstanding Student Award when he completed his GED.
I'll get some, I'll get the screw and I'll get the drill.
This is a copy of Mr. Long's. It's a copy of Mr. Long's high school diploma that he received at the age of 90. This is a picture of Mr. Long's Choctaw dictionary of the Choctaw language, and also a copy of the New Testament. He ordered these from Choctaw Nation, hoping to be able to learn to speak Choctaw. This is a copy of the Great Seal of the Choctaw Nation, presented to him by Hollis Roberts. These are photos of his children. This is his daughter. This is his younger son.
Line down here too.
This is the older son.
Is it possible I could get some information on that? After that, I could do it. I'd like to in the next 3 months. I do it on my van. That's some paper in my van.
Do you have a piece of paper where I can write our names? You have a piece of paper where we can write our full names?
Your books are there on the table. Take one of those books and write it in.
Oh, there's a notebook there. Write it in that notebook. Is that notebook right there?
Got you right on camera.
Here's a pen.
I've got a pen.
There's only stop here in the road if you want to. This is the entrance to the Kennedy Space Center.
Do you see that right here?
This is a picture of some of the rockets. We can't get into the building until later. It's not open yet. But these are some of the things that's on display here. It's better turn it on. This is a small island that we passed earlier.